I never thought I'd be the kind of person to work the night shift at a cemetery. But the hours were good, the pay was decent, and after losing my last job, I didn't have many options. The cemetery wasn't exactly a busy place. People came and went during the day, but at night, it was completely still, completely silent. It felt like the dead outnumbered the living, and there was something strangely comforting about it. At least, that's what I told myself when I started. The cemetery was old. I'm talking ancient. The gravestones were cracked, the iron gates rusted, and there were tombs and mausoleums scattered throughout the grounds. The air always smelled faintly of damp earth and decay. But that wasn't what got to me. It was the silence. The oppressive silence that seemed to swallow everything. My job was simple. Patrol the grounds, check the locks on the gates, make sure nothing was disturbed. It was a lonely job, sure, but it wasn't dangerous. At least, that's what I thought at first. The first few nights were fine. I'd walk the paths, check the graves, sit in the little office by the gate, and just pass the time. No one ever came by, except the occasional stray animal, which only made the place seem more eerie. But things started changing about a week in. At first, it was subtle. I'd hear footsteps behind me when no one was there. A low rustling, like someone dragging their feet through the leaves. It would stop whenever I turned around, and I'd chalk it up to the wind, or maybe my imagination playing tricks on me. But then I started hearing whispers, low, unintelligible whispers. At first, I thought it was just the wind again, but after a while, the whispers became clearer. The voices would come from all around me, drifting in and out of the air. I would stop, straining my ears, trying to make out the words, but they were always too faint, too distant. I remember the first time I heard a name. It was around midnight, and I was walking down the oldest row of graves in the cemetery. The moonlight barely filtered through the branches of the towering trees, casting long, twisted shadows across the worn tombstones. I was passing a mausoleum when I heard it. A name, spoken in a voice so cold, it made my blood run ice cold. John. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I turned quickly, my flashlight slicing through the dark, but there was nothing. No one. Just the graves, the shadows, the rustling leaves. The whispering stopped. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me again. But it didn't stop. Every night it got worse. The whispers turned into full sentences, and sometimes I'd feel a presence behind me, just out of reach. When I looked, there would be nothing. Nothing but the tombstones, the trees, the wind. But the presence remained. Then came the night I'll never forget. I was walking my usual route when I noticed something strange. One of the mausoleums, one that had been closed for as long as I could remember, was slightly ajar. Just a crack, but enough to make my stomach turn. My heart raced. I knew I should leave it alone, but curiosity got the best of me. I stepped forward and pushed the heavy door open with a creak. Inside, it was pitch black, the kind of darkness that seems to reach out and swallow you whole. I hesitated for a moment, but the whispers in the air pushed me forward. The air was thick and damp, and the smell of old stone and decay was overpowering. My flashlight flickered as I stepped inside, illuminating a row of dusty, cobweb-covered stone sarcophagi. I slowly scanned the room, and that's when I saw it. A shadow. But it wasn't like the others. It was a shape, distinct, humanoid. A figure standing motionless at the far end of the room, just barely visible in the dim light. My heart pounded in my chest. I called out, my voice trembling. "Hello? Is someone there?" No response. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching me. Or at least, I assumed it was watching me. The air felt thicker, colder. I felt a pressure in my chest, like something was choking me from the inside. I stepped closer, my hand shaking as I reached out toward the figure. The whispers in the air grew louder, more frantic, until they were deafening. I couldn't make out the words, but I could feel them crawling into my mind, like they were trying to tell me something. I took another step forward. The flashlight flickered, then went out completely. I panicked and tried to turn it back on, but it wouldn't work. The darkness enveloped me, and I was standing there, in complete blackness, with nothing but the sound of my own racing heartbeat. And then, I felt it. Cold, clammy fingers brushing against my skin. I froze, my blood running cold. Slowly I turned, but when I looked, there was nothing there. But the whispers, they were everywhere now, all around me. They were in my ears, in my mind. They weren't just whispers anymore. They were screams. Leave. The voices didn't stop. I was about to run, but I felt something cold and wet wrap around my ankle. I yanked my leg free, stumbling back toward the door. The whispers turned into growls, deep guttural sounds that raked across my brain like claws. I didn't care anymore. I ran, pushed open the door and fled into the night. I didn't stop running until I was safely out of the cemetery and into the streetlight. My heart was still pounding, my mind racing. I could feel the cold fingers still on my skin, the whispers still echoing in my head. I never went back after that night. I quit the job, packed my things, and left the town altogether. But to this day, I can't shake the feeling that something is following me. The whispers are still there, even when I'm alone in my own apartment. And every now and then, when I close my eyes, I see the shadow, the figure, standing just beyond the edge of the light. I don't know what it was in that mausoleum. I don't know who or what it was. But I do know this. I never should have stayed at that cemetery. And if you're ever asked to work the night shift at a place like that, don't. Because once you hear the whispers, once you feel the cold fingers brushing against your skin, you'll never truly be alone again.